Good evening and welcome to the Icecast Live. My name is Shane Chesney. Tonight on the Icecast Live, we have had some internet troubles, and Sam is in his cupboard, trapped in the internet gremlins. So he is here and he is doing stuff for us, but his internet's a bit wobbly, so it's just me for the intro. And tonight we're going to be talking to Mr. Paul Goodenough about Rewriting Extinction. You may have seen the news reports, you may have seen all the stuff online, you may have seen the bit on the BBC, and you might be thinking, what's this project all about? I know it's a comic, I know it's about extinction, I know it's about conservation, but I don't know all the ins and outs of it. Well, Paul is here tonight to explain it in detail, and we're going to find out a little bit more about it. So I'm not going to waste any more time. And I'm just going to play the intro and then we'll speak to Paul very shortly. And welcome to the Icecast Live. I'm back again, and here is my guest, Mr. Paul Goodenough. Good evening, Paul. How you doing, man?
Hey, man. How you doing?
Oh, I'm good. I'm really good, actually. I've been really looking forward to talking to you. We haven't seen each other in the flesh for a while, but virtually we've crossed paths a couple of times over lockdown, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I've tried, man. I really have tried. I keep sort of like seeing if we can just both meet up, but yeah. COVID, other things just keep getting in the way. Life's hard.
It is. And it's very tough for you at the moment because you're exceptionally busy with this project, aren't you?
Yeah, so it's wonderful. So please don't feel too much sympathy for me because it's me who put me in this boat. So I really don't deserve any sympathy or empathy, but it is crazy at the moment. And since that BBC homepage story dropped yesterday, my phone's just been literally going on fire. Just every sort of minute or so, something else comes in. So yeah, it's all good, but it's exhausting.
Yeah. So we were lucky to get you tonight, then, basically, because you're in demand.
That's not what I meant. You're very kind. I just mean there's a lot of people who just kind of when there's 300 people on the project, as there is with ours, there's a lot of people who need a lot of a lot of people who need a little bit of help, but it really adds up.
Mm-hmm. And that's you say 300 people now involved in this project. We'll talk a little bit about more of the nitty gritty in a minute, but you have got an incredible array of artists, writers, celebrities, just about everybody in the world of entertainment at some level is involved in this, it seems. I think of a name and there they are, they're involved in Rewriting Extinction. How did you achieve this? It's absolutely amazing.
Well, to be completely frank, I just really annoyed everyone until they gave in. I got to the point where it's easier to say yes to me and basically say, look, I'll give you an hour to come up with an idea for a comic, or I'll give you a day or two to make a comic, because it's easier than keep saying no to you. And that was it, really. I looked the other day and I've sent 22,500 emails and I've racked up 2,000 hours on Zoom. But I really have to give big credit to your friend, Charlie Adlard, who also, when he came on board, he was really great. He was so helpful. And he went out and he spoke to a lot of the people that he knew. And he really unlocked a lot of things in that kind of the credibility space in comics.
Yeah.
I mean, people in TV and film may know me a little bit, and people in the environment sector know me. But comics, although, as you might be able to tell, it's my passion.
I can see.
I'm I'm not as well known in comics as I would like to be. And it was literally off the work of people like Will Dennis and Charlie and Rob Williams that actually gave the project the credibility that let people like Brian Azzarello know, oh, this is a thing, this is real, this isn't just some pipe dream. And once I got to that point of having the kind of the charities involved and having some of the sort of the big well-known comic writers involved, then I was able to use it as a springboard.
I mean, really, some of the right. Sorry, go on.
I said, but really, I would strongly recommend to no one to do this. It's the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life, and no amount of cajoling would make me want to do it again. Let's put it that way.
I mean, we've got a question here from Lucy on the chat. Did you fanboy out at any names?
Yeah, actually, to be honest, Lucy, most of them. To be quite honest, I'd love to basically sort of claim I had some sort of chill about the whole thing, but I really didn't. There was a moment when I got a yes back from Alan Moore. That was sort of like my hand was like doing a little bit of the shaking on that one.
Yeah.
And I got to write a story that Jeff Senior drew, and that was a real moment for me, because so much of my writing that I wanted to do and so much of the production I wanted to do is based off the work that Simon Furman and Jeff Senior did on Transformers. That was really formative for me. Then John Wagner, he was another one. Taika Waititi, that was a real fanboy moment for me too. There was loads. I guess I'm just a fan, so most of them really.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. I can imagine. Well, I've just had a comment from John, not gone live on Twitch. This show actually isn't on Twitch. Sorry, John, I should have let you know. We're trying out Twitter Live for this one to see how it goes. So there's no Twitch for this one. So sorry, John. We've got some more. The comments are coming in now. Did you accidentally take merch to meetings? Oh, this graphic novel. Who put that there?
Well, actually, Lucy, all of the meetings, every last one of them. Actually, that's not true. No, sorry, that's not true. I had about a month of real meetings, and then COVID happened. So after that, everything was all on Zoom. I did have this, which was the book that we made, and basically we got a mock made. And of course, as you can see, it has nothing in it. But it just helped you visualize it.
That's brilliant.
But yeah, exactly. It's like you could be in here along with nobody else.
But it's good to have a mock like that, though, isn't it? Something physical that people can see, so they can understand what it is and all that sort of thing. But there's some more questions coming through, but I just wanted to ask a couple myself.
Sure.
You showed us a physical book there, but this project's more than just a book, isn't it? I mean, there is a physical book, but there's stuff online as well. Could you just tell the viewers a little bit about what actually is being produced?
Yeah, absolutely. So the long story cut as short as possible is we're 300 people and growing all the time who want to tell stories to make it easier for the average person to understand environmental matters. That's the shtick. That's the thing. Yeah. And those stories at the moment are falling into two buckets, or there may be a very big third bucket that I might be able to talk a little bit about in a minute. Okay. And the two buckets are, one of which is the book, which is the most important comic book on earth, which is by DK Books and out at the end of October. Right. And the second part is social media comics. And so what we also do is we make comics specifically designed for a time-poor audience who don't really understand necessarily the complexities behind some environmental matters and what they can do about it. Right. So what we do in that sense is we basically take something like rewilding or regenerative agriculture or the reintroduction of species, and we say, can we take this really potentially complex thing and turn it into 4 panels? Right. And yeah, so that's actually where we've had most of our success so far. Probably because the book's not out yet, but we've had over 100 million views, to give you an example, off the back of our social media comics.
Whoa!
And that has, I would love to say that's because of me or the Re Writing Extinction different accounts, but it's not. Principally, that's our really big people out there are creators who already have a great and fantastic following. So people like Safely Endangered, War and Peace, Dinos in Comics, Jenny Ginya, Ricky Gervais, of course, Rob Steen. They have been our launch mechanism, if you like. Them and our charities. We've got 7 charities we work with, which is Greenpeace, Land Trust, Born Free, Reserva, Rewilding Europe, the Wildlife Trust, Rewild. We've got all of these different mechanisms for getting those messages out there, and that's where we've got the 100 million views.
Wow, that's impressive by any standards. That is impressive, mate. But when you've got names like Ricky Gervais, I mean, that him alone has got this. He's got this huge reach and fan base. I mean, it's incredible that you've managed to tap into something like that. Well,
that actually it was down to Rob Steen. So Rob was actually the person who brought Ricky on board. So all credit to him. But actually, believe it or not, most of our comic reach hasn't been with the names that you'd probably recognize.
Oh,
so,
that's
for example, so Dinos in Comics, who are really big comic royalty, they make 4-panel comics about basically dinosaurs who are handling sort of mental health issues and depression and trying to find a way in the world. And it's hilarious, it's beautiful, and it's all 4-panel comics. Right. They've been phenomenal. War and Peace, very similar. They've been phenomenal. Jenny Ginya's been phenomenal. They have been, between them, probably about 80 to 90% of our views.
That's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you've got Cara Delevingne, who was wonderful. So she made a comic with myself, Kieran Gillen, and Sean Phillips, and that itself got about 15 million views. So, yeah, we haven't even launched the big ones yet, mate.
No, yeah. You're just getting warmed up. You're just getting warmed up. It's absolutely phenomenal. And have you seen the benefit of these views already? Have you starting to see money coming in?
Yeah, so fundraising, we're at probably about £50,000 at the moment. We've really not got the fundraising engine ticking over fully. We've got a clothing deal with Rapa Nui and T-Mills, they did the Choose Love t-shirt range, which has been so phenomenally successful. We've got a range coming out of those guys that will inevitably really up our game. We've also got a partnership with a major online aggregator of content. I'm trying to think of how to word that without giving it away. That will no doubt help. And then we've got lots of potential things that will hopefully shift the needle quite a bit. So yeah, fundraising is definitely the next thing on my agenda.
Yeah, and I suppose that, first of all, it's all about raising awareness, isn't it? Getting the stuff out there, letting people know what it's about. I mean, because that's the thing. I mean, when you first introduced the project, my first question is like, what is it? You know what I mean? And then as you started to publicize it a little bit more, and you got the book out and all that sort of stuff. I mean, going back to the physical book. How many pages is it going to be? I assume it's going to be a bit of a tome with all those people involved.
352 pages of pure environmental storytelling beauty. It's available. Sorry,
that's massive, isn't it?
It is. It was never supposed to be that big, to be honest, Shane. We started, I think, if I remember correctly, and I may not do, we were looking around the kind of mid-hundreds first, and then we went to like the mid-200s. And then what happened is we started getting some sort of last-minute big names coming on board. And it was people like Alan Moore, the McCartney family. And you're in a situation where like, we can't not have these guys. So we just basically just kept adding bits on there. And Jane Goodall. And so it kind of blossomed from like a mid-100s to 300s quite quickly.
Oh, yeah. You can see how these things can they can snowball sometimes, can't they? I'm just going to bring in a couple of little comments. Michael Powell, a fellow writer, saying, "Evening, gents. Hi, Mike.
Yeah, just down the road from me as well, Michael."
Oh, cool. What else we got? I got another one from Lucy. Say it loud. Great idea. It is indeed. It is indeed. And you can't get any more. Can't get any louder than Paul. So, how many Swamp Thing stories? That's random.
It's a big zero, I'm afraid.
Oh, well, I suppose the environmental element, you think, oh, yeah, well, Swamp Thing's a natural character, isn't it? But then you'd need DC on board. So
We did look at that, and we did talk to quite a lot of the big comic publishers about reusing and making licensed comics with them. It was just going to be so difficult, not just because of the licensing issue, which would have slowed us down no end, but also to do with the different charities and projects we wanted to use and work with. So, I mean, we very specifically found these 7 projects all across the planet that we knew in 12 months could actually make a massive difference. For example, the reintroduction of the beaver and the Tasmanian devil, buying land that's going to, at the moment, is at risk of being sold to the mining and the meat industry, buying that and protecting it. When you start to work with big corporates, then of course you have to run everything past the due diligence, and it slows things down. So rather than that, we basically chose, with hand on heart, the best 7 projects across the planet, without any sort of worries about moral compromise, and went for it that way. And that meant we could do whatever we wanted to do, but it did mean we then couldn't work with certain publishers and companies and so on and so forth.
Well, I think you have to make these compromises when you want to really make a difference, don't you? You have to say, we want to get things done, and sometimes that means you can't work with certain groups. It's just the way it is. Yeah,
absolutely. And all credit to the major publishers. They were really helpful. It just wasn't going to be a thing.
Yeah, that's cool. So you've got a little video for us, haven't you? Hopefully it'll play.
We do have
there are troubles with video sometimes, so we'll bring it onto the screen, and it'll hopefully give people a little bit more information about what the project.
Absolutely, and just to kind of intro it, so this basically is all about the projects that we are sponsoring, which are 7 and 7 charities involved. So I'll quickly just play the video, and hopefully you might have some questions.
Great stuff.
There you go.
I mean, that's impressive. The partners you've got involved. I mean, Greenpeace and those. I mean, how did you choose your 7 projects that you wanted to back? How it must have been difficult to narrow it down.
Yeah. So basically, I've got to give a lot of credit to Tom Mustel, George Monbiot, and Greta Thunberg for what was basically the plan behind this. So they were the people who highlighted the kind of the 3 main pillars by which you can actually make a massive difference on the planet quite quickly.
Right.
And the way you do that is, first of all, you go after the laws and the business practices, because without changing the system, we're all screwed. You have to change the way we operate. And there's one, for me, there's one charity above all others who are great at systemic change, who really can affect political change and actually challenge the laws and the practices, and that's Greenpeace. So 1/3 of all the money we raise goes to Greenpeace. Right. The second piece, which is, I shouldn't play favorites, one of my favorite charities, which is the World Land Trust. And what they do is they find land that is at risk of being bought by industry that would destroy it. And they basically buy it and they give it back to the local population. Wow. And that saves so much carbon. It saves entire species from extinction. They do such incredible work. So you've got the first piece over here, which is the change in the system. The second piece, which is protection. We have to protect the planet. Secondly, and then the third piece, which is restoration, which we picked those 5 projects around the world, one in each kind of major area of the world. So you've got Reserva, which is saving the cloud forests in South America. You've got Born Free, which is working in various areas of Africa to make sure the ecosystems are working there. Rewilding Europe, which is taking areas in Europe and putting it back to their wild best and reintroducing species. You've got Rewild, who work in Australia, and what they do, and in Vietnam, and they reintroduce things like the Tasmanian devil. Wow. And you may have seen all of the Australian wildfires. And
Yes.
I understand it's a complex issue, but there are sometimes some simple solutions. So what Rewild are doing there, they reintroduce the Tasmanian devil, which picks up the detritus from the floor of the forest, takes it underground to build their burrows and their dens. And by not having that detritus on the ground, it stops the fire from spreading. So and that's the first time for 3,000 years they've had Tasmanian devils on mainland Australia. And with a breeding program, you can take down the wildfire problem.
Wow.
So yeah, that's the sorts of things that we're doing. And then with the Wildlife Trust in the UK, probably most listeners will be aware of those guys. The Wildlife Trust, what they're doing is various projects to restore wetlands and peatlands and reintroducing the beavers, for example.
Yeah. We've got Wildlife Trust here in where I live. There's a Wildlife Trust branch, and they do some amazing work, with education as well, educating young people about the environment and all that sort of stuff, which is equally important, I think. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I feel that educating people from a young age about not just how they can help and all that sort of stuff, but just understanding how the ecosystem works.
Absolutely, mate. And yeah, so again, big props to people like Izzy Tree and Charlie Burrell. But if you don't know already, the people at home, generally what people try to have done in the past is save what's called the apex predators, or the really pretty species who live in an ecosystem. But by saving the pretty species, you're not actually really helping much apart from that species. You have to repair the ecosystem. For example, you've got these keystone species which are part of the food chain. For example, like krill in the sea. If you don't save krill, everything's screwed. Doesn't matter. You cannot save the dolphin. You cannot save whales unless you save krill. As one example, a whale takes so much power to open its mouth, it will not open its mouth unless it can get a full mouthful of krill. Wow. So whales will swim around and starve to death if there's not krill.
Oh, that's just heartbreaking, isn't it?
But you can save. That's the thing, is people have been putting millions into trying to save the different animals. But what we've done is work with experts who can say, this species here, this one, I wish everyone in the world knew about this species, because if everyone knew about this species and had the awareness that the other species had, we would do some incredible stuff. And that's what the project's all about, really. Being really efficient, doing the cheapest possible way to make the best possible impact right away.
Yeah, and I love the idea of reclaiming or buying habitats. That's just so powerful. Just take it away from the slash and burn, so they can't take away those valuable habitats from the animals.
Yeah, I really actually want. It's a bit a bit last second, but I actually want. If you don't mind, I'll show you something. I'll show everybody something. I think might actually just excite everybody.
This is
this is just one of our partners, Rewilding Europe, and we can see here, for example, some of the areas they're looking to rewild. And rewild is a process of basically putting life back into the places that have had life removed by human intervention. So we can see here some of the let me move that out of the way, it's not very helpful for you guys. You can see some of the illustrations of what the Rewilding Europe want to do in various areas. And you can see here, for example, the reintroduction of the flamingo and the bison and various other birds and wetland creatures. And look how amazing that looks.
It does, doesn't it? It's like paradise,
Absolutely. And anyone who looks up something like Knepp Estate, if you ever go to Knepp Estate in England, it's incredible. They have safaris in England because they've reintroduced things like the Tamworth pig, and they've got various forms of like wild creatures you don't get other places in England. It's just a wonderful thing. And sorry, I feel like I'm blathering now.
No, it's incredible, mate. To see these animals in the wild is a gift, isn't it? And it's I mean, if you live out in a certain part of the world or a certain part of the country, it's very easy to take it for granted. I mean, I've always lived in the countryside. I've always seen, red kites and things like that. And a lot of rare animals live in Shropshire, and it's so easy to take that for granted, that but we're very lucky here to have that abundance of habitats and wildlife. But so much of it over the world, in England and in Europe and all over the world, has just been destroyed and decimated. The idea of restoring it's just so powerful to me.
Well, if everyone hasn't heard, there is the most amazing news that dropped last week.
Right.
Rewilding Europe and with other partners have just agreed to rewild 500,000 acres in Scotland, which is just game changing. And there's areas in the Carpathians all across Europe. And one of the things we're doing, of course, is raising money, but also raising awareness, because people understandably are feeling really crap at the moment and feeling like there is no good things happening. And it's because the media focus on climate and carbon, which is really hard for the average person to affect. But in biodiversity terms, that is actually perhaps a bigger, more urgent problem, and people really can help. And there's some fantastic projects. I mean, and if we fund those projects, we can all see the benefit really quickly. Which is what this is, of course, what Rewriting Extinction is all about.
What it's all about, yeah. It's fantastic work, mate. It really is. Now, I understand that you've got some examples of some of the artwork that we can have a look at.
Absolutely, yeah. So more than happy to show if I can share my screen for a sec. So this is a little bit about us, of course. If anyone doesn't know, you can buy the book. 100% of the royalties that we get is given to the charities and the projects I just mentioned. And what it is a combination of what you might call satirical, funny humor. We've got things that are starring well-known names, so Peter Gabriel and Ted, for example. Cool. You've got also more traditional print comic art, so with Brian Azzarello and C. Shepherd and Daniel Zazelj. You've got, well, that picture's gone a bit strange. Apologies for that. This one with Ricky Gervais and Rob Steen.
Cool.
Let me flick through because I've got loads of them in here, so apologies.
That's all right.
Carl Kirsch, we've got animated stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the diversity of styles, that's beautiful. I mean,
that's Jock.
I was going to say, is that Jock? It looks like Jock.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't look like Jock. It looks like his work. You know?
Yeah, it looks just like Jock, doesn't it? A little bit less angry.
Yeah, when he's really angry, he looks a bit like that. Yeah.
And we've just got, again, just this massive range of incredible people. So we've got people who are drawing in this kind of the style of their native areas as well, which is really important and also really powerful. So we've got original people of America, also sometimes called sort of Native Americans. They've done their own art. People from, again, Africa, Indonesia, Northern Sumatra, all across China and in Southeast Asia, Australia, all over the world. And what they've done is they all bring their own style to this and their own humor and their own take. Some have gone for a very hard-hitting, emotional, and some have gone for silly ones. Like this is Nick Gerwich, which is brilliant. I just love it. Just a very simple commentary on hunting.
I mean, you don't want it to be really serious and dour, do you? Because, you know, it's a big book, and if you got 300 pages of really serious, it's going to be quite hard going, isn't it? You want a little bit of light and dark, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I was very, very keen to do on this was also switch it up. So with a lot of anthologies, and it's not a poke at other anthologies, with a lot of them, there you get a whole ton of 2-page stories. And that kind of heartbeat for me in an anthology, I find quite tiring. So we've got single-page stories, some that are 8-10 pages, some that are a bit more poetic, some that are a bit more hard-hitting, some that are more traditional, some that have almost no words at all. And we found that different feel throughout it just gives it a natural rhythm, and it just feels a little bit easier to consume. Yeah. And actually I can show you if I go back on screen, but
I'll put you on full screen.
Yeah, so also what we have in here as well is like actual information about the project, so people see what the money's going to. And you've got sort of more traditional comics like so, and then you've got again really different styles. So
nice. I like the two. I love the two-tone there. That's really nice.
Yeah, and then you've got like Joel Pett, who's a satirist here, and John Freeman and Lou Stringer, and I know you know, of course. And then you've got things like this from Rob Rinder and Tony Lee and Neil Clements, and Jerry Duggan here, and they're all very different.
So many great creators, you know. I mean, you say all these names that, you know, fantastic.
Yeah, then you got Brooklyn Beckham and Charlie Adlard and Robert Kirkman here, and yeah, it's been a labour of love, and certainly I felt a lot younger before I started, but it's a great thing. It's a great thing, and I'm super proud.
I think you can be proud, mate. I think not just of the piece of work itself, but of what you're achieving with it. You know, and you are just at the start of the journey, as you said. You know, you're just at the start of the fundraising, and it's quite boggling actually to think what you can achieve. What are your sort of blue sky aspirations for this project? I mean, you've got some targets there, but you know, if you could achieve anything, you know, what would be the end game for you?
So I probably will get like dog poos through the post from saying this on live, but my absolute dream would be that something, a unit a little bit like Comic Relief, so that every year there's an apolitical unit that everyone can just say, I don't need to understand the complexities of all the projects, all the different charities working behind the scenes. I have one place that I trust, and that I know if I want to give my money to them, they will spend every penny on projects. They will absolutely be tireless in trying to do this thing. And this thing, of course, is restoring ecosystems and saving species from extinction. So I would absolutely love to have this ongoing campaign that feels as powerful and as important as a Comic Relief or Children in Need or Sports Relief. Yeah,
I think that is totally doable. I think if everybody gets behind it, you know, I'm being an optimist, I know, but you know, you look at how people get behind those things, you know, Comic Relief and Sport Relief, and very early on they did the same, didn't they? They had to take a lot of time explaining where the money went, how it was spent, how it works, for people to trust. So you're doing the right thing because you're doing that now. And as you say, once people trust that it's going to the right places and it's doing the best work, they can feel comfortable, you know, just giving their money to the project and knowing that it's actually going to do some good.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I mean, it's taken me 2 years, truthfully, 2 years to do all the research into what would actually be the best projects to fund. And it's hard. The average person can't be expected to spend that long and have that much time and attention to find where to put their money. Because you might just think, oh, I'll put it all in this one charity, all in this one charity. But different charities work in different places in different parts of the world with different amounts of efficiencies as well. And that's why I think a single unit that basically comprises the best of all of them and brings everything together, makes it really simple for people, could be a very powerful thing. But like I say, the charities will probably want to kill me for saying that.
Yeah, we want to own this. I mean, that's the thing. You get all these different factions, don't you?
That's, just be clear, that wasn't quite what I meant. It was more that what they are trying to do, each of them, understandably, is they're trying to answer the problem themselves. And so they are stretching and stretching, trying to do the best they can.
Yeah.
And also they work on different parts of the legal scale. So you've got someone like Extinction Rebellion who works on the illegal scale, and someone like the Wildlife Trust who works fully on the legal scale, and people in between. So it wasn't me saying they're empire building. It was more that it's sometimes hard for them to work together, which is why they've not put any money into this. No one has. It's all been just from me. Yeah.
So admirable, mate. We've got a couple of little comments. I'm just going to read them out. Lucy, in my day, we had Captain Planet. Well, thank you for that, Lucy. I remember.
You're Captain
right, we've got a comment from Chris here, which I quite like. Could be a yearly convention with money going to charity, going to this cause, you know, a convention. That's an interesting idea, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, if only I knew somebody who run conventions. You don't know anyone, do you, Shane?
Well, I mean, we do have at ICE, we do obviously support a charity every year.
Mm.
It has been the same charity for the last sort of 3 years. But as we talked, we've talked about this, haven't we? And I think that definitely going forward, I could say it online. I make it official. ICE going forward will be supporting this project.
Oh, thank you, man.
Yeah,
well,
all of our charity work will go towards this project.
Oh, thank you. We've got the most important comic book on Earth. We just need to cross out the word book and write con. Most important comic con on Earth. Done. It's branding's done.
I mean, we don't raise a lot, we're only a little show, but we it's a little bit of money, and we do auctions and things like that, and we have raised money for some charities over the years, and I'm just delighted to be able to do whatever we can to support this project, because I do believe that it does make a difference. There's a lot of charities out there that don't, and I think this really does.
Well, I can tell you that 100%. Like I say, I mean, what I've done is I've put my savings into it to make sure that 100% does go through to the projects. The entire team is voluntary. No one gets paid. I certainly don't get paid. So it 100% goes through right on the ground to saving species. So yeah, I can hand on heart in front of a judge, put my hand on heart and say, yeah, 100% of the money goes to the right places.
And I have to ask the question, Paul,
Sure.
is what drives you? What drove you? Because obviously you're extremely committed to this, and something at some point in your life must have said, I need to do this. Was there a turning point in your life? Was there an event, or is it something that's built up over time?
There was a few events, but there's one in particular. So the first thing is to say, it often feels like, because I'm on like a call live, I feel like it might seem I'm somehow different to everyone. I'm really not. I just look at things to be done with almost like something on the spectrum scale, and I sort of think, well, that thing to be done is, I should approach it with the same amount of power as I would if I was cleaning my own bedroom. Just do it. Just do it. Stop talking about it. Stop vacillating, and basically just do the thing. So that's my mentality. No matter what it is, I'm just like, right, I don't care if it's going to hurt me. I don't care if it's going to really impact me. I'm going to do the thing if it's worth doing. So that's just a set that up.
Trait. It's a character trait. It could be your doom. But
yeah, maybe, mate.
Yeah.
And then there was a moment at an unnamed charity event where an unnamed charity were calling on governments and businesses to put their politics aside and stop empire building and save the planet. And I just basically stood and said, well, what the F about you? You need to work with the other charities, and actually you need to stop being a hypocrite, and you should look yourself in the mirror and know that you did every human thing possible to stop this event happening. And I basically just called them out in public and said, you have to do this. And then the next day I was at home, and this house looks really great, and it looks really great to literally the end of these screens. That's just not as nice. And what I'd done is I saved up for a few years to basically get some work done on the house, and I was seeing the architect to get it sorted, and I thought, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't have just called all those charities hypocrites and said, you need to do everything humanly in your power to stop this crisis if I'm not prepared to do the same. So what I did was then take all the savings I had from the house work and put it into this. So yeah, it was that moment. And if ever you come around, Shane, I recommend spending the day in here, because the rest of the house doesn't look anywhere near this nice.
Well, I think I could spend, half a day just on those shelves that you've got behind you,
I should point out they don't go on any further than the camera looks. It
does look impressive. Yeah, it looks like it just goes on forever,
No, it's just literally the size of the camera. It's just a sheet I painted pictures of books on.
It's the background, it's green screen. It'll come down later at the end after the interview. I mean, so basically, just for the desire of not being a hypocrite, this has led you to create this incredible project.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess.
When you boil it down, I'm not belittling it. I'm not belittling it at all, mate. I think it's, if only more people had that sense of purpose and that sense of responsibility,
Well, I think actually, to be fair, a lot of people do. I
Mm.
was in a very fortunate situation that I started my own company when I was 17. And although I'm not like loaded or very well off or anything, I was able to take a year out of work to do this. And I
Mm.
did have savings I could put into it as well. Not everyone is in that situation,
No.
but everyone in this project has given up something to do it.
Yeah.
And that something is what they're able to do. So honestly, I don't think anyone has given up more or less than each other. Generally, they've all given up what they're capable of giving. And
Mm.
some people just astound me with how much they've done and how much they continue to do. So, for example, Timo Wertz, who's one of the artists, just keeps messaging me saying, "What can I do next?" I'm like, "Timo, stop giving so much." So, yeah, I definitely don't want it to be about me. We all need to kind of rewrite Extinction. We all need to do our bit, and that's going to be different for everybody, and that's cool. That's absolutely cool.
Yeah, and I did notice early on in the project you were saying, this isn't about me, this is about this. But it's funny, isn't it, how people sort of require that figurehead to sort of lead, and you're there, and it's a bit. It reminds me of the Life of Brian, when they're all following him, and he's like, no, you need to do it for yourselves. Oh,
Yeah.
tell us how to do it for ourselves. It just reminds.
Yeah.
It's a truth, isn't it? It's just one of those things that if you want to achieve something, somebody has to take charge.
Yeah, and I can honestly tell you, I do not want to be. No offense, I don't want to be doing things like this. I want to be sitting drunk in my pants. I've been for a whole massive argument with the whole marketing and PR people who are helping us, all volunteering their time, and I was absolutely adamant that I would not do loads of TV appearances and all that sort of stuff and radio appearances, and yet here I am.
It's just two mates having a chat, mate.
Oh yeah, but you're a star, Shane. You've got your own show.
Yeah, you see how many people are watching. But
actually,
yeah,
I can't.
No, well, it's probably good, sobering to. But as I say, we do get a lot of people watching after the fact, and I do believe as well that if you could change one person's outlook, change what if we made another you tonight, imagine that. There's only one Paul Goodenough, obviously. But,
yeah, the idea of a second one.
the idea that somebody else could sort of change their path and say, I'm going to do something, about this. I'm going to put my energy into it. It multiplies. It rolls out. So I think, as much as you might find it sometimes, I don't know what were not distasteful, but you don't want the public eye, as it were.
Not really, no.
It's a necessary evil, isn't it, to get the job done?
It is, but there's also been loads of people like Karen Holloway and Glenn Fabry the other day were saying that they've kind of started changing the way that they've been doing stuff specifically because of the project. And Corey Brotherson, again, has said how helpful the project was being in kind of opening his eyes. And I've had that from any number of people, both in and outside the project. And it's really strange when some of my mates have been sending me photographs of saying, "Oh, look, I've only got a little lawn, but I've been growing clover on it now because I saw your video." And that is really heartening. It really is, because it's physical. You can tangibly see, okay, that thing I did over there made that difference, and that's lovely.
Oh, I saw your video. Well, that's it. I saw your video of your rewilded pond. Which is beautiful. I loved it. When I was a little kid, we had a pond in the garden, and even as a little kid, I was really into ecosystems and wildlife, and I wanted it to be a natural pond. It wasn't about fish; it was about frogs and newts and toads and all the insects that live on. I was fascinated by that little ecosystem within that little body of still water. And when I saw your rewilded well, it was more of a lake, actually. It was quite big.
I think it was good camera work, mate. It's not that big.
Yeah, fisheye lens. But it looked fascinating, and it reminded me of that love that I had, And I think I'm leading on to a question here. Do you feel that, when people get back in touch with these ideas of rewilding and being close to nature, they're getting back in touch with that little child that was always fascinated by nature?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really funny because recently Secret World Wildlife Rescue, they dropped off a couple of owls that had been injured because you had that wild area you're mentioning.
Mm.
And when Steve was here, he said that in his opinion we had more biodiversity in that little wild area than there was lots of the kind of the sites of specific natural interest and the wildlife reserves around the country,
Wow.
because it's left it. But yeah. And I've got to say, I totally agree with you that you see something different in people when they go to kind of a wild area as opposed to a manicured area. The noise, if ever you go to Nep Estate or you come down and you spend like 5 minutes in that, the noise, and there's something in the air, you can feel a different vibration when there's just life all around you. It's a really curious thing. But down there we have deer and badgers, and we have squirrels and newts and frogs and toads and all sorts of things, bats. And all we just left it alone. It was really simple, mate. Just left it alone, and it sorted itself out, and it's a beautiful thing. It really.
Sorry, I'm getting a little bit emotional here, actually.
Oh.
it just really moves me, you know, the potential. It's just sorry.
No, you have to come down and I'll stick you down there with a little sleeping bag and a carry bag full of like.
In the summer, I'll sleep outside. You know, that's fine. You know, but it just it sounds amazing. I do need to come and visit. I mean, I have rewilded my backyard. You know, basically, I've just left it. I don't think the landlord's very happy. You know, because it's supposed to be paviers, but it's just plants everywhere. I mean, there's berries, there's flowers.
Amazing.
We've got butterflies, we've got bees. The bees love my backyard. You know, it's like a little, and I just love all that. And my landlord hates me for it, but you know, it looks lovely. And it's my tiny little bit of wildlife. Yeah.
Well, mate, you don't need a big space. Like Dominic Monaghan, who did a lot with us, so he's the actor on Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and Lost and stuff. He speaks really eloquently. He said, if you can just take a handful of dirt and just leave it alone for a few weeks, you come back to that handful of dirt and it will have tons of life, millions of bits of life in it, just by leaving it alone. And you think how big that is. No matter how small your back garden is, you will be providing a home for just tons of life. And if you can just cut little holes somewhere in your fences so things can walk through, then you'll start getting hedgehogs, and then you'll start getting, well, it depends on how big the hole is, but you generally most people get like hedgehogs and kind of smaller things like frogs and toads and kind of crawling insects and stuff.
Yeah, I certainly see voles and things like that, you know, small mammals, you know, because there are little bodies of water nearby, so we get a lot of those sort of aquatic mammals, you know, passing through. I love all that stuff, you know.
So I've got to tell you, Shane, you've got it in a little secret. I actually, you know, when you're saying about going back to being a kid and enjoying wildlife, as a kid, I didn't like wildlife.
Oh, really?
Oh,
wow.
No.
So you're a convert.
No, kind of. I wouldn't even say I'm that much of a convert. I mean, basically, for me, I love animals. I really, really love animals. I don't know that I love the wild, but I absolutely, I know.
Yeah, they can be a bit dangerous.
Well, it's like some people like going for walks and getting stung by insects. I just hate that stuff. But the way I look at it is I see a problem. There is an absolute problem that if we don't fix it, we're all screwed. So I'm seeing it almost like a problem to solve rather than I want to be sitting there in my matching green stuff with binoculars looking at osprey or something.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to help the planet for myself. Because I quite enjoy staying indoors playing board games and computer games and reading comics. It's more for other people, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I do love animals.
I think that's interesting, you know, you say that, because a lot of people get into it because they have this love of nature and all that sort of stuff. And it may be that because you're slightly detached from that, you're able to actually be more objective and functional, if you like.
Maybe, mate. Yeah, it's really embarrassing though. Because the amount of people I know, like on this project, are like, oh yeah, look, there's a lesser created newt warbler. I'm like, sure.
A lesser-created newt warbler. I don't think that exists, but that sounds awesome. I'd love to see one.
Yeah.
Got a couple of comments from Chris. Could be a yearly convention with money going to charity, maybe. Yeah, we've already had that one. Sorry. Asking guests if they want to make another version of them with you. Do you need to go on HR training again, Shane? Oh.
I see. Yeah.
I didn't know what he was on about then.
I got it just at the end. I was like,
yeah. Yeah. Okay, Chris. I wasn't making a pass at Paul.
Oh yeah, you could definitely do better than me, Shane.
So one more from Chris. The most worthwhile interview you've done, Shane.
Oh,
the best
cheers,
for this
Chris.
project. Oh, thank you.
Try to be a heart shape.
Yes. We go outside of the normal comic realm sometimes. We've done interviews with about psychology and today, but there's a comic link. There's definitely, because this is about a comic. It's just that there's more to it than just a comic. Don't forget, it's about a comic. So we are like getting towards the end of the hour. So I suppose we ought to do the other bit, which is how can people get their hands on this comic, Paul? Where can they go and all that sort of stuff?
All of the normal online retailers and also physical retailers. So you pop into a Waterstones Forbidden Planet. It'll be available in supermarkets. It's of course available for pre-order on all of the major online places. Particularly Amazon is one that's I know it's been hovering around kind of the best sellers in pre-orders at the moment. And it's actually I don't know about the price on other places right now, but I know it's for sale on Amazon. So it's down from 20 quid to 15 quid. Which for a 352-page graphic novel or anthology, whatever you want to call it, is incredible value.
Yes.
And I know the reason they're doing that is to shift as many copies, to get to as many people, and to make sure that the price point means that the average family can afford it. So all I'll say is, as I said before, 100% of the royalties from it will go to the projects. And it's called The Most Important Comic Book on Earth, which is a bit of a play on words, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Yes.
And it really has been the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. At points nearly killed me, but it's great. I mean, also look at the names. You've got Ricky Gervais, Cara Delevingne, you've got Steve Backshaw, you've got all of the kind of the big comic names as well, like Alan Moore and Brian Azzarello and Marguerite Bennett and Ariella Christina, Jock, Scott Snyder. You've got loads of people. If you like comics, you will be very well served.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. One more comment from John. Been a great interview, one of Icecast's best. Well, thank you.
Cheers, John.
Couldn't have done it without Paul. Oh well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, Paul. I really do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to me about this tonight. I feel really enthused about it, and I feel really excited about the fact that ICE can help do our little bit, and whatever we raise from our charity work will be going to you, and we hope it's a lot. Anybody out there watching, support this book. It really will make a difference. Thank you, Paul.
No worries. Well, thank you, Shane, and thank you for all you do, and thank you for everyone who's kind of tuned in and said comments. And you can also, if you didn't want to buy the book, you can donate directly on just rewritingextinction.com. And again, 100% all goes to projects. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Good night.